Cheers. Thank you for joining us today, Stephen.
Thank you.
Appreciate you taking the time. As part of the Heritage Project, we've asked to speak to you today regarding some of the decisions and effects of the Olympic Games 2012 within Stratford and the General Newham Borough. I'd like to start by asking you, why and how was Newham chosen to be the place to host the Games, and what were the key individuals and institutions that played a part in bringing the Olympic Games 2012 to Newham?
Well, the decision was made by the International Olympic Committee in Singapore in 2005, and I remember it very, very well. And a key part was played by school children in Newham who went to Singapore as part of the London bid and made the point to the International Olympic Committee that London is a youthful, diverse, energetic city, the kind of place where the Games would be very, very welcome and can make a big positive impact. I think that was quite an important part of the reason. I mean, the reason we were able to make the bid was because the international station at Stratford had been agreed upon, and the Channel Tunnel rail link, as it was then called, High Speed 2 as we now call it, was being built. Now, I claim a lot of credit for that because I started the campaign to build it way back in 1988. So I'm always keen to try and stake my own claim to some responsibility here. But of course, there were lots and lots of people involved. I'd pay credit to Kate Jones, who was the Director of Environment and Planning in Newham for a number of years, who's since sadly died. Of course, Seb Coe did a fantastic job in leading the bid, but there were some very, very bright, committed, able people who came together to make a success of what, to begin with, seemed like not a very strong case.
Thank you. To date, the Olympic development legacy has created more than 100,000 jobs for Londoners. Securing Olympic jobs for local residents was a top priority for the hosting boroughs, particularly Newham. Newham today remains a diverse community. Can you recall what the Olympic Games meant for the Newham and Albanian community at the time?
Well, I think the employment benefit was a substantial one. So there were quite a lot of unemployed people who were able to get jobs during the Games, short-term temporary jobs for the duration of the Games. And having got that on their CV, were then able to get a longer-term job and a career in the future. I don't know how many people that was, but I've certainly come across instances where that has happened. And my sense is that quite a lot of people had that very positive experience. And certainly it is true that unemployment in Newham has been significantly lower since 2012 than it was before. And I would very much hope it is the case that people in the Albanian community shared in those benefits along with others.
Thank you. One of the most successful accomplishments relating to the employment during the Olympic 2012 was the promise of London living wage for all staff who worked in the development of the grounds or in hosting the Olympic Games. Shpresa programme, representing the Albanian community, has stood alongside Telco and other organisations campaigning for London living wage. Can you tell us a bit more about how this benefited employees and the factors which weighed this decision?
Well, that was certainly was a big success. The Games themselves were a living wage event, and so everybody who was employed at the Games and supporting the Games in one capacity or another benefited from the living wage, and that's changed the whole economy of the UK. And Telco, supported by Shpresa, has done a fantastic job on that, coming up with the idea in the first place, then working out what the level of the living wage should be, then promoting it with employers and encouraging employers to take it up, and eventually, of course, the government introduced a thing called the national living wage, which is a rather watered down version of the idea, but did mean that quite a lot of people in the UK got a significant pay rise thanks to the ideas that Telco with Shpresa had come forward with and championed. But when you say that's one of the biggest successes, I'd also want to just draw attention to the fact that Telco was given the job, or London Citizens was given the job, of recruiting people for those temporary short-term jobs on the park during the games. And I think that was a huge success because Telco was able to get through to quite a lot of people who would never have considered the possibility of a job on the games. People in mosques, for example, people in local churches, people in the Albanian community, who would probably, many of whom would have given up on the idea of ever having a decent job. But thanks to that initiative by London Citizens, were able to get a decent job on the park during the games, and building on that, were then able to get a decent career for themselves subsequently. So the role of London Citizens in the recruitment for those jobs, I think, was a very big success as well.
Thank you. How did the Olympics play a part in the economic growth and the legacy left behind for Newham?
Well, it was a dramatic turning point. It changed the economic geography of London by highlighting the opportunities on the east side of the city, which had tended to be rather overlooked before. And because the games were such a huge success and everybody enjoyed them so much and everyone felt so positive about it afterwards, not just in the UK but around the world, lots of projects have come forward since then and still are coming forward, which have created jobs and other opportunities for people in East London. So I think, looking back, we'll see the games and the success of the games were a real and positive turning point in the economic history of London, and East London has benefited greatly as a result. I should say, that won't be everybody's point of view. For some people, it wasn't a good time. Some people felt that there wasn't really much benefit for people living in the area. It was kind of richer people from around the world who were coming in and they had a great time, but for the residents, it wasn't the case. I understand that point of view, but I think actually people who lived in East London enjoyed those few weeks as well. And the fact that East London did such a great job and was praised around the world for the success of the event, I think was a boost for all of us who lived in East London.
Thank you. Are you aware of any provisions that the council is providing relevant to affordable housing for Newham residents?
Yes, well, the council is building some homes now. We haven't had council house building for many, many years. There are now some homes being built. We need a lot more, but the council has started work on 1,000 or so homes over the last 4 years, and I'm hoping we're going to see many more council homes built in the future. In the end, what we need is a change of government so that we get a government that is willing to commit the really substantial resources that are required to building a new generation of council housing. That's what we need in East London. But I do welcome the steps that the council has been able to take to start building at least some new council homes.
Thank you. During the Olympics, we celebrated sports and recreational activities. How did the amenities built serve as a legacy for sports and recreational activities within the community? And how does this legacy live on 10 years after the Olympics?
I think the sports legacy is a less strong one than the economic legacy. Now, there have been lasting improvements. For example, the sport dock facility at the University of East London Docklands campus, that was built in order to be ready for the games, and it was used by the US Olympic team for training during the games themselves. That is a great facility. It's there now. It's being used by the community. It's used by the very successful local basketball project, NASA, which has done a great job. So that's been a success, and the benefits of that continue. I've seen a big increase in cricket opportunities in our part of London over the last 10 years or so. It's hard to attribute that to the Olympics because cricket is not an Olympic sport. So that's probably not directly related to it. I think, other initiatives that were taken up very enthusiastically at the time around sport don't seem to me to have lasted as well as some of the other benefits from the Olympic Games. I think that task of re-enthusing people for sport, getting youngsters involved in sport, that needs to be done again from time to time. It wasn't a one-off achievement.
Thank you. During this time, Shpresa played an active part in performing and continuing the Albanian language to be recognised as a GCSE. Can you tell me what was your involvement in this?
Well, I've supported that campaign strongly. I've written letters on behalf of Shpresa calling on the government to accredit Albanian for a GCSE. We engaged with the exam bodies. We got them to say how much funding it would require to do it, and there was a big fundraising effort in the community, but sadly our target has never been achieved and we don't yet have an Albanian GCSE.
Would you say overall the Olympics 2012 were a success?
I would say that, yes. I think the experience of the Games themselves was a very positive one for people in East London, and I think the legacy of the Games has been a positive one, particularly the economic legacy and the economic prospects, the job prospects for people growing up in East London, I think are significantly better now than they were before the Games, and I think the changes that the Games brought about are a big part of the reason for that very substantial improvement.
Thank you, Stephen, for your time.
Thank you.